The sound hit first, 120-pound black and tan muscle slamming against reinforced steel with enough force to make the entire kennel complex shudder. Lumbo's jaws snapped at the gate, strings of saliva flying, his deep bark more growl than warning. For handlers in tactical gear stood 10 feet back, hands hovering near their sidearms. "He's gone," Senior Handler Martinez said flatly, pulling out a tablet. "I'm not risking my people anymore." Lieutenant Commander Ethan Walker stood in the observation room, watching through bulletproof glass as a Rottweiler, who'd once been pride of Naval Special Warfare Command, tried to tear his way to freedom or death. The preliminary termination paperwork glowed on Martinez's screen, waiting for a final signature. Lumbo hadn't always been this. 6 months ago, SEAL teams requested him by name. The dog who cleared compounds in Afghanistan, who detected IEDs that saved entire convoys, who'd earned a reputation as the most reliable operator on 4 legs. Handlers used the fight over who got to work with him. Then came the desert ambush. The midnight extraction gone wrong. The moment Lumbo's handler, Iron Mike, they'd called him, took rounds meant for his team and went down hard in the sand. The dog had stayed. 3 hours defending that body while RPGs lit up the darkness and gunfire tore through the air. By the time the rescue team arrived, Lumbo was still standing over Mike, covered in blood. Something fundamental in his eyes shattered beyond recognition. The dog who came home wasn't the legend who deployed. Martinez's finger hovered over the screen. "I need your authorization, Commander." Walker's jaw tightened. He had maybe 6 days to prove them all wrong, or watch a hero die. Welcome to Mr. Bryan's Tale, where every story takes you on an unforgettable journey. Whether it's thrilling adventures, heartwarming moments, or tales that'll keep you on the edge of your seat, this is your destination for captivating storytelling. If you love getting lost in exciting narratives and discovering new worlds with every video, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss out on the next amazing tale. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. The mission was supposed to be routine. Extract a high-value asset from a compound 12 clicks outside Kandahar. Lumbo had run this drill dozens of times. In secure, out, 20 minutes, tops. He'd bounded alongside Iron Mike to the darkness, their rhythm perfect after 2 years together. Mike's hand signals were Lumbo's gospel. Mike's voice was the only command that mattered. They moved as one unit, one mind, through doorways and down corridors where death waited in every shadow. Then the world exploded. The ambush came from 3 directions simultaneously, a coordinated kill box designed to shred the extraction team before they could react. Tracer rounds cut phosphorescent lines through the night. An RPG turned their support vehicle into a fireball that painted everything in hellish orange light. Mike went down protecting his team, firing until his rifle ran dry, buying second for others to reach cover. Lumbo saw him fall, saw the way his partner's body crumpled, the way his hand reached out one last time in a gesture the dog knew meant stay close. Good boy, stay close. So Lumbo stayed. He positioned himself over Mike's still form, teeth bared at anything that moved in the darkness. Rounds kicked up sand around them. Shrapnel sang deadly songs through the air. An enemy fighter tried to approach the body. Lumbo drove him back with a fury that later reports would describe as unprecedented. 3 hours. That's how long the firefight lasted before reinforcements broke through. 3 hours of Lumbo standing guard, refusing every command to retreat to safety, choosing his partner over his own survival. When they finally pulled him away, something in those dark eyes had changed. The mission claimed 4 enemy combatants and 1 American hero. It broke 1 legendary dog. Absolutely not. Admiral Chen's voice cut through the briefing room like a blade. That animal put 2 handlers in medical. He's a liability. Ethan Walker stood before the command board, knowing this was his last shot. He's traumatized, not defective. We ask these dogs to be warriors, then act surprised when they can't just switch it off. We've tried rehabilitation. Martinez pulled up incident reports on the screen. Day 3, he broke Handler Williams' wrist. Day 7, he cleared 6 feet of fence and nearly mauled a maintenance worker. Day 12. I know the reports. Walker interrupted. I also know Lumbo saved 17 lives across 4 deployments. I know he earned a commendation for valor. I know he stayed at his post for 3 hours while we extracted the team. He leaned forward, and I know Mike would wanted us to try harder. The room went silent. Iron Mike had been Chen's nephew. 6 days. Chen finally said, his voice rough. After that, I signed the order myself. Walker didn't waste time. He loaded Lumbo, sedated and muzzled, into a reinforced transport crate and drove 4 hours to a private training facility surrounded by empty land. The destination wasn't a rehab center. It was a home. Sarah Miller answered the door, a Gold Star widow who'd buried her SEAL husband 8 months ago. Behind her stood little Mike, 8 years old, shaggy blonde hair, wearing his dad's too big red T-shirt and carrying a weight no child should know. Commander Walker, Sarah said softly, this is about Lumbo. Yes, ma'am. I know it's asking a lot. Dad talked about him. Mike interrupted, stepping forward. He said Lumbo was the best partner he ever had. Walker knelt down. Your dad was right. But Lumbo's hurting now, just like he stopped himself. Just like me, Mike finished quietly. Dad taught me about warriors. He said the strongest ones know how to ask for help. Walker looked at the boy, then at the crated dog, whose growls had gone eerily quiet. Maybe the strongest ones knew how to give help too. The next morning, they brought Lumbo to facility's outdoor training yard, a wide expanse of dirt surrounded by wooden fencing where combat dogs learned to trust again. Or didn't. For soldiers stood along the fence line, weapons ready, watching as Walker unlatched the heavy-duty crate. Lumbo emerged slowly, muscles coiled tight, scanning for threats with the paranoid intensity of an operator who'd seen too much. His dark eyes landed on each soldier, calculating, remembering that humans had become unpredictable. Everyone stay back, Walker commanded. No sudden movements. Then little Mike stepped into the yard. Son, where you? Martinez started. Let him, Walker said quietly, watching something flicker across Lumbo's face as the boy approached. Not aggression. Confusion. Mike walked forward with no hesitation, no fear, just a kid in a red shirt carrying a worn baseball that had belonged to his father. He stopped 10 feet from the massive Rottweiler and sat down in the dirt cross-legged, like he had all day. Hey, Lumbo, he said simply. My name's Mike. My dad was Little Mike too, but I'm not little anymore. Well, maybe to you. The dog's growl rumbled low, a warning that had sent handlers retreating. Mike didn't move. My dad told me about you. He said you were brave. He said you always had his back. His voice got quieter. He said you tried to save him that night. Lumbo's ears twitched. I have nightmares too, Mike continued, rolling the baseball between his palms. I dream about the soldiers coming to our door. Mom cried for 3 days straight. I couldn't cry at all. Still can't sometimes. He looked up at the dog, and something passed between boy and beast, a recognition that transcended species. Dad taught me that warriors carry things, heavy things, and sometimes... Mike's voice cracked slightly. Sometimes they need someone who understands. Not someone trying to fix them, just someone who gets it. Lumbo took 1 step forward, then another. The soldiers tensed. Walker held up a hand. Wait. Mike stayed perfectly still as 120 pounds of traumatized military dog approached, sniffed once, twice, then sank down into the dirt beside him. Not aggressive, not defensive, just tired. Yeah, Mike whispered, finally reaching out to rest a small hand on that massive head. Me too, buddy. Me too. 3 days passed in a rhythm that had no protocol, no manual, no official approval. Every morning, Mike would sit in the dirt with Lumbo. Sometimes he'd talk about his dad, about school, about how weird it felt when people said, I'm sorry for your loss, like it was supposed to make things better. Sometimes he'd just throw the baseball and wait to see if Lumbo would chase it. At first, the dog wouldn't. He'd watch with those dark, haunted eyes, muscles ready to bolt or fight, never quite settling. But slowly, so slowly the watching soldiers almost missed it. Lumbo began to remember what it felt like to just be, to exist outside constant threat assessment. to trust that a hand reaching out might offer comfort instead of pain. On the fourth day, Mike brought a sandwich and ate it in front of Lumbo, offering half without expectation. The dog sniffed it, looked at the boy, and finally took it gently from his palm. "Good boy," Mike said, exactly the way his father used to. "It's okay to eat, Lumbo. You're allowed to be okay." That's when it happened. Lumbo made a sound that wasn't a growl or bark, something broken and raw, almost like a whimper. His legs folded, and that enormous head dropped into Mike's lap with the weight of every mission, every loss, every moment of survivor's guilt a warrior dog couldn't articulate. And little Mike, who hadn't cried at his own father's funeral, who'd stayed strong for his mom, who'd swallowed his grief like medicine. Little Mike wrapped his arms around Lumbo's thick neck and finally, let the tears come. "I miss him, too," the boy sobbed into black and tan fur. "I miss him so much and nobody understands." Lumbo's massive body shuddered once, twice. Walker, watching from 30 yards away, felt his throat tighten. Martinez turned away, wiping his eyes, because in that moment, a broken dog and a grieving boy gave each other permission to stop being strong. And in that surrender, they both began to heal. Lumbo stayed in Mike's lap for 2 hours, both of them breathing, both of them present, both of them realizing they didn't have to carry it alone anymore. When Lumbo finally stood, his movements were different, still cautious, still watchful, but no longer coiled with barely contained violence. He'd found his pack again, just not the one anyone expected. Day 6, the deadline. Admiral Chin was scheduled to arrive at 1,400 hours to review Lumbo's rehabilitation progress and make the final call. Walker had prepared documentation, progress reports, video evidence of the transformation, but he knew what really mattered was a demonstration, proof that Lumbo could be operational again. At 13:30, Mike was in the training yard playing fetch with Lumbo, the dog now returning to baseball with something close to joy. For soldiers watching the fence, their weapons no longer drawn, beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, the legend could return. That's when the perimeter alarm screamed. Breach at the east gate. Martinez's radio crackled. Unknown male, armed, heading toward the command building. The intruder had done his homework. He knew Admiral Chin would be there, knew the facility would be focused on the dog demonstration, knew that in that window of distraction, he could settle an old grudge dating back to a dishonorable discharge 3 years prior. What he didn't know was that little Mike had wandered toward the building to get water. Walker saw it first, the figure in dark clothing rounding the corner, spotting the boy, changing trajectory. Time compressed. The intruder's hand moved toward his jacket. Mike froze, confused, vulnerable. Lumbo didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't wait for a command. He exploded. 120 pounds of reactivated Navy SEAL dog crossed 40 yards in seconds that felt like heartbeats. The soldiers would later describe it as textbook perfect. The acceleration, the trajectory, the moment of impact that took the intruder down with surgical precision before a weapon could clear leather. Lumbo positioned himself over the subdued threat, teeth bared, every ounce of his training flooding back as he held a position until armed personnel arrived. No excessive force. No wild aggression, just a professional operator doing his job with absolute control. Mike stood wide-eyed, breathing hard. Admiral Chun, who'd arrived early and witnessed everything, slowly lowered his sidearm. Walker approached carefully. "Lumbo, release." The dog held for one more second, assessing, confirming the threat was neutralized, then stepped back, immediately moving to Mike's side, positioning himself between the boy and the subdued intruder. Chin watched the whole thing with an expression somewhere between shock and awe. "Commander Walker," he finally said, "I believe I owe you an apology." He looked at Lumbo, now sitting calmly beside Mike, alert but controlled. "And I owe this dog a debt." Martinez approached with medical personnel to remove the intruder. As they passed, he stopped beside Lumbo and Mike. "Damn fine work, operator," he said quietly to the dog. Lumbo's tail wagged once. Just once. But it was enough. The termination order was officially shredded the next day in a brief ceremony attended by no press, No fanfare. Just the people who mattered. Admiral Chen signed Lumbo's reinstatement papers personally, with a notation that he was to be partnered exclusively with Lieutenant Commander Ethan Walker. There was one other condition, handwritten at the bottom. K-9 Lumbo authorized for regular therapeutic visits with civilian consultant Michael Miller indefinitely. Mike stood beside his mother in the Admiral's office, trying not to grin too wide as Lumbo sat at perfect attention beside him. The dog's posture professional, but his eyes soft when they landed on the boy. "Your father will be proud," Chin said quietly to Mike. "Of both of you." Sarah Miller squeezed her son's shoulder, and for the first time in months, Walker saw something other than grief in her eyes. Hope, maybe, or just peace. The real ceremony happened later, away from offices and officials, in the training yard where it had all changed. Mike threw the baseball one more time, and Lumbo, fully reinstated, fully operational, fully himself, chased it with a kind of joy that only comes from being given a second chance. Walker watched on the fence line as boy and dog ran circles in the dust, backlit by golden afternoon sun, both carrying scars that would never fully fade, but learning to carry them together. "Think he'll be okay?" Martinez asked, approaching with 2 cups of terrible facility coffee. Walker accepted one. Consider the question. Out in the yard, Mike had tackled Lumbo in a hug, and the massive Rottweiler had responded by knocking him over and standing on his chest, tail wagging furiously. "Yeah," Walker said, "I think they both will be. Because sometimes the biggest wounds need the smallest hands to heal them. Sometimes the fiercest warriors need permission to be gentle. Sometimes broken things, when placed together carefully, can make each other whole." Lumbo had lost a partner, but found a purpose. Mike had lost a father, but found a guardian. And both had learned that the strongest thing a warrior can do isn't fight harder, it's let someone in. The paperwork called it rehabilitation. Walker called it what it really was: love. The sun dipped lower as Lumbo and Lil Mike raced across the training yard one final time, their shadows stretching long across the dusty ground. Walker watched them disappear around the corner of the facility, the boys' laughter echoing back, a sound that hadn't existed in this place before a broken dog and a grieving child taught everyone what healing really looks like. Admiral Chin stood beside him now, the reinstated K-9's file tucked under his arm. "You know what the real lesson is here, Commander?" Walker glanced at him. "Waiting. We spend millions training these animals to be weapons," Chin said quietly. "But we forget they're warriors first. And warriors don't break the same way machines do. They need what we all need." He paused, watching Mike emerge in the building with a bowl of water for Lumbo. They need to know someone's got their 6, even when the mission's over. As Lumbo drank deeply, Mike's small hand resting on his back, Walker understood something profound. The military had tried to fix Lumbo with discipline, structure, and protocol. But it took an 8-year-old boy who understood loss to remind everyone that some wounds don't need fixing. They need witnessing. They need someone brave enough to sit in the dirt and say, "I see you. I understand. You're not alone." 3 months later, Lumbo was back in rotation, clear for operations, certified for active duty, partnered with Walker on missions that saved lives and stopped threats. But his most important deployment happened every Saturday morning, when he'd arrive at the Miller home and spend a day with Mike, both of them healing a little more with each game of fetch, each quiet moment, each shared understanding that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let someone help carry what you can't carry alone. The termination order that had once spelled Lumbo's death was now framed in Walker's office, stamped with red void and a handwritten note from Chun. "Remind me that warriors are worth fighting for." Sarah Miller would tell anyone who asked that Lumbo saved her son's life that day at the facility. But Mike knew different. Mike knew they'd save each other. A boy who'd lost his voice for grief and a dog who'd lost his trust in the world, both finding their way back to the simple act of showing up. Some heroes wear uniforms. Some have 4 legs and a service record longer than most soldiers' careers. Some are 8 years old with shaggy blonde hair and their father's courage in their heart. And sometimes, just sometimes, the greatest rescue mission isn't the one in enemy territory. It's the one that happens when 2 broken souls decide that broken doesn't mean finished. What absolutely floored you about Lumbo and Little Mike's story? Was it the moment Lumbo finally broke down in Mike's lap? The way an 8-year-old succeeded where trained professionals failed? Or that explosive rescue that proved a broken dog was still a hero? Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment. Here's what I want to know. If you had 6 days to save Lumbo from that termination order, what would you have tried? Would you have risked bringing in a child like Commander Walker did? Or is there another approach you think could have worked? Let's debate this in the comments. Real talk time. Have you ever witnessed someone or something that everyone else had given up on make an incredible comeback? Maybe it was a rescue animal, a friend going through hard times, or even yourself fighting through something impossible. Share your story. This community needs to hear it, and you might inspire someone who's struggling right now. The big question: do you think military working dogs like Lumbo get enough support when they come home with trauma, or are we failing our four-legged warriors? This story is based on real issues facing K-9 veterans. What should change? Challenge for you. If this story moved you, I want you to do something today. Reach out to one person who might be carrying something heavy alone. A text, a call, a comment. Just like Mike showed up for Lumbo, you might be exactly what someone needs right now. Then come back and tell me you did it. Let's start a chain of people showing up for each other. And finally, should Mr. Brian Tales do a follow-up story about Lumbo and Mike's first official mission together? Or do you want to hear about Commander Walker's backstory, why he was willing to risk his career for a traumatized dog? Vote in the comments, mission or backstory. Don't you dare scroll past without hitting that like button if the story hit different. Subscribe to Mr. Brian Tales for more stories about unlikely heroes, impossible bonds, and the moments that prove courage comes in all sizes. We're building something special here, a community that believes broken doesn't mean finished. Are you in? See you in the next story, Legend. And remember, the strongest warriors are ones brave enough to ask for help and brave enough to give it. Mr. Brian Tales.